Hey guys, this is Kevin, and for today's expat tip, I would like to talk about the stairs, getting used to being kind of the center of attention or having people look at you, stare at you, point at you. That may be something that you've never experienced before. But you can look at me and look at just how white I am, and you can imagine that for someone like me going to a place like Manila, I really stuck out like a sore thumb. And if you are someone who is, I'm kind of more of a shy, introverted type in many ways, and if you have that kind of personality, this may be particularly challenging for you because you're just more comfortable being in the background or not having anyone really notice you. But if you move to the Philippines or if you move to any country in the world, probably where the people are of a different race than you, there's a good chance that people will stare at you. And I'll give you a little bit of advice on this and how to deal with it. First, of course, you just have to be aware that it's probably going to happen. In the Philippines or in Asia, it's probably going to happen. This is especially true if you move somewhere where there are not a lot of other Caucasians or expats. And I'll get into that just a little bit more in a minute. But the first thing is you have to be prepared that it's going to happen. Another thing is you really cannot take it personally. If you get angry with people who are staring at you, or if you stare back at them aggressively, that's not going to work. You can't take it personally because what I have found is people were just really curious as to why I was there. So if people really stared at me, especially little kids, I would just wave at them and ask how they were doing or something like that. Don't take it personally. And what you'll find is that over time you will just get completely used to it and you may not even notice it anymore. I'll give you an example. When I moved to Angeles, the staring was not as bad because there were a lot more expats there. The amount of stares you get really depends on where you live. So when I moved to Angeles, I noticed, I mean, people would still notice me, but not quite as much just because there were so many other Western men roaming around that city. But whenever I would go visit my wife's family in the province, it was funny. When I would sit out on her front porch, we would get amused and even a little bit concerned because when a somebody would come by on their motorcycle or something, their instinct was just to do a double take because it was like, looking at me, it's like they thought maybe a mannequin was sitting on the front porch. I mean, everybody really would do a double take because out in the province, I was probably the only Westerner for at least a few blocks, if not further. Or another thing that happened is, again, this is when I was in Angeles City and already married. My wife and I would have to take some trips to Manila, working on various things to do with her visa. And I remember one particular time we went to a place called Izatan Mall. Izatan Mall is there in the University Belt area. I used to go there all the time when I lived there, but it's a very Filipino place. I mean, there's not a lot of Westerners around there, and I didn't even really notice anything special about going to the mall. I had been there so many times, but I remember my wife said something to the effect of, "Why is everyone staring at us?" And I told her, I said, "Baby, they're staring at me because I am the only white guy in this entire mall." So it's something that you just get used to. I wasn't even noticing it anymore. And I'll tell you something that's really funny and really ironic. If you live in the Philippines for quite some time, like several months or a few years, you may find that you stare at other foreigners just as much as the Filipinos do, just because you haven't seen another foreigner in a while and just your reaction is somebody really sticks out. They stick out of the crowd and it draws your attention. So anyway, that's just something to be aware of. And the main thing is you cannot take it personally. I think most of you probably have enough common sense to know that. But if you are new to the country and you're already stressing out about other things, then that can just add to it. And I do remember sometimes when I would come back home, I would feel the difference because here, I'm just your basic anonymous white guy, but over there, in many instances, I was the center of attention, whether I wanted to be or not. So, you know, that's something that you're just going to have to adjust to. It's like something that I've said before. You have to recognize that you're moving to another place. You are in their country, and whether or not you want to be stared at, it's irrelevant. It's going to happen. And just remember, it's not personal. In some cases, the people staring at you, they really want to talk to you, but they're just shy. So another thing I would do, I told you that I, would greet children sometimes, but even with students and people maybe just are a little bit older, young adults, if I noticed someone was staring at me, I would walk over up to them and just introduce myself because maybe they just want to be my friends. You never know. So anyway, that's a factor that you're going to have to adjust to if you're going to be an expat in the Philippines.